Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlicker shills, desolators, peasants, vassals, my Kurdish friends, my Baluch friends. I want to talk a little bit more about Baluchistan because some more documents have come to the fore now, and they shed some more light on what U.S. policy is about Baluchistan. And I'll put my video about Baluchistan and attach it below, but for those who are tuning in for the first time, Baluchistan is an area of Pakistan that has a insurrection going on, and is a different ethnic group than the other three dominant ethnic groups in Pakistan. There's a lot of tensions there, a lot of repression against the region of Baluchistan, and you will be hearing more about it, because U.S. foreign policy in the long run will be to try and foment a autonomous or perhaps an independent state of Baluchistan. And I'll not go into all the details that I went into in my last video. It is attached below. I want to go into the new information that seems to confirm what my belief is, and that is that the United States avidly supports a independent Baluchistan, and it would be a huge success in a number of ways, and that the United States has been actively involved in that goal for some time, and that's what all this new documentation proves. So let's get into the details. Last May of 2011, so this is actually almost 2 years ago, the same non-government organizations that fomented the Arab Spring started getting more actively involved in cultivating a united Baluchi front ahead of a proposed U.S.-funded Baluchistan insurrection. So that's pretty interesting. So as it turns out, the same organizations that helped organize grassroots rebellions and grassroots activism in all the Arab Spring countries are now involved in cultivating the same thing in Baluchistan. And they say in this article that it is ahead a proposed U.S.-funded Baluchistan insurrection. So that means at some point enough arms and support will go into Baluchistan from the U.S. to destabilize and cause an insurrection that the United States can take advantage of with the destabilization of Pakistan. So as it turns out, we know a little bit more about the foundations and blueprint for this movement, and that is the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, a very ironically titled political action group that funnels money into these grassroots insurrections. And this 2006 Carnegie Endowment for International Peace identified Pakistan's Baluchistan province as a potential point of leverage and an opportunity to assert foreign intervention. They proposed using a Baluch insurrection as a counter to both Islamabad, Pakistan, and Tehran, Iran. And that's easy to understand why they want to do that, because we have Baluchs in Iran who are an oppressed minority, and we have Baluchs in Pakistan who are an oppressed minority. So it certainly follows in the footsteps and blueprint of all the other activities the United States has gotten involved in the Arab Springs, where you go in and work with these insurrections to help topple these governments. And Syria and Iran are two big fish that the United States is after, so it's very much in their interest to work with the Baluchs. And then again in 2011, the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace sponsored the Baluchistan International Conference, and they made repeated calls for more international intervention. And it seems like international intervention, direct intervention, is unlikely, but certainly covert support of the Baluchistan movement is more than likely. And why not? There are apparently 6 million Baluch insurgents. That's just the insurgents, 6 million Baluch insurgents. So pretty formidable force if armed well and given support, and that's apparently what the United States has in order. But before I get on to that, let me remind you that the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, I mentioned earlier, was pretty ironic, and they are the ones who are pushing for the Baluchistan insurrection. They are the ones pushing for the Baluchistan international intervention. And it just so turns out that the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace is funded by Exxon, Chevron, BP, General Electric, Shell, George Soros, and the Rockefellers. So that'll tell you a little bit more about what their agenda is, regardless of the nobility of the Baluchistan independence movement. And then again, we had Seymour Hersh in a 2008 article I spoke of in other videos called Preparing the Battlefield. And he mentioned there that U.S.-supported Baluchi groups operating against Tehran and Islamabad is reported to already be a reality. And just as I would suspect, even though that's 4 to 5 years ago, we have had operatives in Baluchistan for all this time. And in fact, the Pakistani government has accused the Western powers of arming the insurgents in Baluchistan, and they are correct, because it turns out India, Iran, and U.S. are all accused of arming the Baluchs, and the reason why is because they have pretty sophisticated weaponry, and so I would like to find out more about that. But the Carnegie report talks about attacks by Baluchs on Pakistani military and Chinese facilities, which of course are both fine with U.S. foreign policy. And so the big prize, of course, if Baluchistan has about 20% of the energy and minerals of the state of Pakistan, and they now have a Chinese port, a deep sea port, courtesy of Chinese construction and Chinese investment in Gwadar in Baluchistan, and that is one of the only big construction projects that the Pakistanis have made happen in Baluchistan. And what a prize for the U.S. if they could manage to create a independent Baluchistan, and then the Chinese would lose their one foreign port base in Gwadar. So this is no better way to counter China, which is what this is all about, than to destabilize China's most reliable ally in that region, Pakistan, and a nuclear armed power. And so this would be to great advantage for the United States to eliminate Pakistan in the encirclement of China. So it very much plays into the encirclement and integration of China into the international order. So Baluchistan, very important. I'm not sure when exactly we're going to hear more about it, but we will see activity there picking up, I assure you. And a free Baluchistan is in the cards as far as future U.S. foreign policy is concerned, and current U.S. operations. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.